Welcome back. If you aren't already following Naked, please take a minute to do so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Each follow means so much and it actually helps a lot. If you have more than just a minute, it would be absolutely incredible if you could leave a review and maybe even share an episode with a friend. I am relatively new to the pod world, especially new to the things that are important in the podcasting world. And apparently reviews and follows are up there on the list of importance. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Welcome here, and thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. I am delighted you're here and also delighted to have an amazing guest today that I met randomly when we were in Nicaragua. If you've been around for a while, you probably heard me mention Nicaragua a lot. It's because we lived there for over a year over the past 6.5 years of our traveling. So we met a lot of people and we were able to create a lot of really beautiful connections and communities there. And this couple, we met them at a restaurant area, a resort, and we ended up connecting over a conversation, and that turned into us having them over for dinner. That turned into us all cooking together, going to the beach together, and having endless chats about the silly stuff and about the serious stuff. And we just kind of took them in as our own, and were just inspired by their story. And they left Montreal with the idea of just exploring and following their hearts and doing something different, knowing that there was something that they wanted to pursue and combine their passions. They work in the wellness with nutrition and movement and combined with music and content creation. And out of that blossomed this beautiful, amazing company where they are just be able to share the things that have changed them and help people live a life that is their best version of themselves, or at least help them lean towards those things. So I'm so excited to have Eryck here today. He is an amazing person, and he gets to share their story of how it all transpired and the highs and the lows and everything in between. So I know you're in good hands, and you'll enjoy this episode and find inspiration in wherever part of your life you find yourself in. I think it's beautiful, and I'm so glad that he could be here to share the bits of their story. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to Naked, where stories unfold. I'm your host, Janelle, a once former pastor's wife who exchanged small town living for a nomadic life. The unexpected change in our life led my husband and our 4 kids to traveling the world. From years of being rooted in our small town to the thrill of wandering the world, our story has been anything but ordinary. On our journeys, we've met amazing people, learned their way of life, and heard their unique stories, which has led me to understand the profound impact of shared experiences. In each episode, we explore moments of transformation, guided by one single question: is there a time in your life when everything changed? We invite ordinary storytellers like yourself to share the often unexpected turns in life. So grab a seat and settle in. This is the Naked Podcast. Okay, well, today I am so grateful to have a dear friend who may have his partner join us as well. So if you hear some movement, it's only just because we have somebody else joining us. But the dear friend that we met in Nicaragua, our time in Nicaragua was so long that it allowed us to create so many beautiful relationships. And Dominique and Eryck are the ones that we just adopted them into our family. I felt like from the moment we met, we're like, I remember us saying to you, like, let's get together. And you're like, no, genuinely, you said, I'm taking you up on that. And I was like, no, please do.
That's right.
And then it just kind of evolved into this like ongoing friendship and us hanging out together. So today I have Eryck here. We met in Nicaragua, but since then there's been so much time and so many things have changed in our lives and their lives. It's my first podcast, potentially having a couple. They do have a little wee one. So right now, Dominique's with the wee one, but if she does join us, you'll get to hear kind of their story together as to where life has taken them. But Eryck, thank you for taking the time out of your busy fatherhood and business and moving and all the things that are going on to be here to share your story with us and with Naked and the community here. I really, really appreciate it.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Janelle. I'm very excited.
It's mutual. I'm super excited when you guys said yes. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm so happy to have you here. Before we launch into this, maybe you can share a little bit about who you are and where life has you currently, and just give people a little bit of information as to who they're listening to today.
Okay, who I am. My name's Eryck. I am 32 years young, and I'm from beautiful Montreal, Canada. I'm back in my hometown now after traveling for about 3 years with my wife and my soulmate Dominique and our baby girl Lydia Rose, who is 10 months. So recently a father. And this chapter is like I mentioned, is really to set back to do a setup. So we're here to Plan what's coming up next for family, what we want now as a different unit, and also navigating through all these different roles, especially the father one.
Hmm.
Very grateful. My purpose is, my why is really to help others become the best version of themselves through a holistic approach. So through movement, fitness, nutrition, healthy habits. This is really why I'm here on this earth, honestly, and to
Hmm.
inspire and coach people to really unlock their full potential. However, I'm a multi passionate and talented man, so this is one part of who I am. But I also love music, DJing, traveling, cooking. Like you already know this, but also being in the fashion modeling career for almost 14 years now in my life, that brought me to different many countries at a young age. Um, but and deep down, I always have a beautiful open heart, gratitude first, and I really love life. I really do.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I
So
think that
voila, I
was
guess.
so amazing. And it's so evident.
Okay.
Honestly, the first time we met you, it was exactly that. We were like, you guys were just like glowing. And we were at this place called Tricasa in
Yes, you were.
Nicaragua. And it was a beautiful day. But like, you two just like, you just have this essence about you. And the fact that we got to do life together. We got to do actually quite closely for a season. They would come over every Sunday and we would
Hmm.
cook, and Eryck would cook and Greg would cook. They'd be in the kitchen sweating it up in Nicaragua like you do.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we enjoy this amazing meal together, and we just like got to really get to know you guys on a heart level and have you guys really become integrated into our little circle of our family, which is one of the best parts
Yes, you did.
about traveling is meeting people like you guys and having like lifelong friends that are now a part of your circle. It feels like we'll be talking when we're in our late years about life and
Oh
about
yeah.
all the experiences we've had. And yeah, I love when you're talking about your life. You're just like there's so many facets of what you're tapping into, what you're like realizing it's not just one, which is so
Yes.
inspiring that you can kind of lead into many things that are part of your passion and what makes your core like come alive. It's just
Yes. Yeah.
so
Totally
beautiful.
right. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a journey to tap into all these different aspects of my life. I feel like I was uh, putting them in compartment, yeah, compartment,
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm.
compartment, and now I'm just like, you know what, this is who I am, and I'm actually good at all these three really different, completely different aspects, but I'm feeling really confident about them, and then to own it and to have confidence that you can be good at it. Um, I think it's totally fine, and to not shut it down, but to embrace it, and then let that creativity and that energy flow. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have this hat, sometimes you have a different hat, and it's fine. It's really okay. So
Yeah.
I'm still navigating through all of it. But I feel like I'm tapping into my power more than ever at the moment. And
Hmm.
I also believe that fatherhood brought this side of me, which is really empowering. Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, you say that. I just think about that. Like, it's amazing what parenthood does to you. You like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
there's all the things like you learn how to live a life with less sleep, and you learn how to, be more okay with things being fluid and going more with
Hmm.
the flow, and not having so many different things that are just the way they need to go, but like allowing room for things to kind of turn upside down sometimes, because
Yeah.
sometimes they do, you know and being okay with that. And then it brings this like other part of you, this growth in you that you didn't even know needed or was possible, um
Hmm.
in the world of parenting, even in the beginning. Like, I feel like, I mean, just who you were, I mean, 10 months ago to who you are now, I'm sure you can see just measurable change
Yeah.
in life, and it's just
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing that I'm so excited and happy for you guys to be a part of. You guys are great parents, and you're paving a path like that is
Thank
new,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah. Well, thanks for I think thanks for sharing this. Oh, sorry, Dominique just said hello. Yeah. Thanks for saying this. We realized that Dominique and I, one of our mission as a unit, as a family, is to really share to whoever's ready to receive the information that you can live a beautiful, healthy life, be your best version, and thrive as a human individually and as a family. And that to actually have children will bring the best out of you, and that you can really live your best life. Uh, Unfortunately, it's sometimes, you will hear the opposite, that once you get a child, everything kind of stops and this and that. No, this just brings more fuel to your dreams, to where you want to go. And I believe it's doable. It's 100% possibility. You just really have to believe it. And I think it comes down to also having the right partner to do that. But it's 100% possible. And it's one of the messages of Dominique and I, to inspire as many people to live their best life with a family, with a child. That, Olivia Rose is the first of hopefully many, and you guys are a huge inspiration for us, with your four beautiful children, to have done what, just not just done, but be who you are. We really, really aspire to that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for real.
As I think about you guys, I often reference, and when I talk to the kids about this, is like, you don't have to be a master at something to do something. Part of our mastery comes from doing it, is from fumbling our way through it. I had no idea when I was becoming a parent. I had read one book that led me completely astray, and
probably,
and being a parent has taught me it's okay to fumble and stumbling. And a lot about what we're doing in life is like finding out what works. There are some parts of my parenting in the beginning where I really didn't know what I was doing, and you tried it and realized that just did not work, and then there are other parts that did, and realizing like it's okay to not have it all figured out. And I think about you guys starting your journey when I first met you, and like we're I don't know, we're in Nicaragua, we're seeing what this has to offer, being very open, and then seeing where it's taken you, and seeing you guys take risks and be like, we're gonna try this thing, we're gonna start this thing, we're gonna take a boat and we're gonna go live on an island for 3 months, and we're gonna see what that has to hold, and not getting stuck in the fact that we're not masters at this. We're in the midst of discovery and figuring it out, but being led by this peace within us, and trusting that, and letting that be our guide, instead of letting fear be the thing that hinders you and holds you back. And you two, I don't know if you realize how inspirational you are in just being a unit, and new in your, like, you've been together for a long time, but in the grand scheme of life, you're new in your journey.
For sure.
And this, and yet you're like, let's take these risks, and let's do these things, and let's do it with courage and with passion and with hope and with excitement, and let's also know when it's time to leave. Let's also know when it's time to turn the corner, and realizing that that's allowed. You don't, just because you pick one thing, it doesn't mean you're pegged in that, but that it allows you to be like, gosh, we learned a lot in that season, and now it's time to take a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn in the journey. And just
very well said. Very, very well said. Very well said. There's as I think this, but I do a lot of introspection, and I realize that I like to live my life within seasons. So it's constantly seasons. The seasons go from 3 to 6 months, and there's always major reassessments after those, mostly 6, but between 3 and 6, there's always major reassessment, and to give myself permission to put myself to do that reassessment, and to see if I'm still aligned with whatever I was pursuing, or the goals or the objective. And it's okay if you're not. It's okay if if it changes, or if it shifts. It's okay if it's time to move. It's really okay, and I truly believe that it's part of the reason why who we are now is through following our intuition and giving ourselves the permission to start over again and again and fail and yes and no and just kind of keep going, and without being, like you just said, paralyzed by fear and doubts, and not being masters of anything, but just trusting that, yeah, it's the right direction to go based on your values and your integrity. And that's it. That, for me, that's strong enough to make it this like a bold, life-changing decision. Yeah.
I love when you talked about it being seasons, because I think nature is one of the best teachers. We're in Barcelona right now,
right.
and
Yeah.
went to this church last week. It's I'm going to say it wrong, but it's like the most beautiful church. It was designed by Gaudi, and it's called Sagrada Familia. You might know it. And it is fascinating. And what he did was he took, well, so much of what is inside the building is replicas or inspiration from nature. And it's not like the part of the tiles, they're pressed from leaves. And like some of the design on the wall is mimicking the design of wheat. And like his whole goal was to bring the outside inside, because sometimes we can get inside these buildings and forget that there's so much beauty to be found in nature. And one of his things he says is like, nature is the best teacher. And I love when you're talking about the seasons, how sometimes we don't actually see that they can be seasons. We just like, I've committed to this thing. And so now I'm like on the hamster wheel, and I'm doing the thing over and over again, and there's no way out. How many times do we look at life and feel so stuck, and just feel like, well, how do I change this now? Like, I'm already rooted here, or already made this commitment, but realizing that to really evaluate it. I love that 3 to 6 months go like, okay, so where do I feel now? And allowing for anything to move and change. What a beautiful like way to look at life. In the sense of like realizing that nature teaches us, spring, summer, fall, winter, it's all about the seasons, and they are very vastly different from one to another.
They are.
And letting that be a part of your life. Like I love that, Eryck. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to take that.
Okay. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that you connect with that. It's you want to go even, a little deeper with that. These were, let's say, more like on a macro scale, where it's the bigger assessment. But the truth is, Dominique and I, one of our strongest, I don't know if it's skills, but one of our strongest, I guess, quality as a couple is our communication. And we do our walks, and we call it walk and talk, every single day. And throughout those days, so we do daily checkups, and the checkups is consistent. And eventually, once you build those checkups daily, once you arrive at that 3 months, it's quite clear what needs to be done, because you've been nourishing and feeding those daily checkup daily. So I think it's really important to take time and to give yourself permission to take a step back and assess and reassess, and then, move forward and have that, even if there's a little bit of, I don't like gray zones really, but sometimes you have to mingle between those two just a little bit. It's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, but then it's going to be so much clearer going forward. So so I'm glad that you relate to that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That is really beautiful. Okay, I have to ask you before we continue, what are you drinking? Because that's part of the thing in the podcast. What are you drinking?
Yeah, this is a collaboration. This is a tea. It's herbs. My father-in-law André, he made me it's just hot water and a rosemary leaf.
Oh.
And rosemary leaf, and this is interesting. And I normally just do mint tea leaf with water, so I combine both, and now it's like my go-to my go-to tea lately. So just mint from the garden and rosemary. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I am drinking chai. I found this company here. I just learned about them. It's like a husband and wife. They're like, they have no background in making chai, and they just decided. I don't know their whole passions, but hopefully we'll have them on the podcast. We'll learn more about them. And they just started this. They're just passionate about making something that wasn't full of sugar, and that was just like more authentic. And so I have that with some oat milk, and it's
What
just
is it, like a syrup, or what is in the bottle?
it's basically, well, it's in Spanish. I wish my Spanish was better, but from what I can get, it's just basically spices, like all done naturally, just spices that are
Okay.
so it's very condensed. So you only need like 2 capfuls of this to put in here. So this lasts
Okay, so
like,
spices in there. Spices, like
yeah,
oh, okay, okay, okay.
like, but it's in a,
Makes
like a
sense.
liquid, like it's down into like a liquid form. And you just put like a little bit. So this lasts like 20 drinks, or 25 drinks.
Okay.
And so it's nice. It's just put it in some oat milk or whatever, and it's like it
Mm,
feels like a warm, water bottle or blanket for your
yeah.
soul. It's just like, it's the best thing ever. So
It is.
yeah, and I got this little mug. I did a class when I
That's
was
a
in
cool mug.
It's neat, right? I went to
Yeah.
a pottery making class when I was in Glasgow, and so I was able to learn how to make some things there, which was really, really cool.
Really? So you created that one?
This one I did not, but I created one
Okay.
very much like it. Yeah. This one I was inspired by this. I saw it at a market and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. He's like, I teach classes. So I decided to take a lesson, which I've always wanted to do. It's much harder than I
Mm,
thought it was going to be, but I learned
yeah,
something and
probably.
it was great. So I was able to make one, yeah, like this, but not this one here. It's delicious though. And the cup is, it's fun to travel with your things when you don't have things. This, there are certain things that feel comforting and feel like home. So now we've
Hmm.
all graduated to traveling with our very own mug so that we can always drink out of a
Oh,
mug
really?
that
That's cool.
because sometimes you go to Airbnbs and like, I don't know if I want to drink out of this,
Yeah.
So we now travel with our own mugs, and it's become a thing. We just stuff it full of socks. You can always put something in a mug to try to make space to get it in the bags, but it's become our thing. So like,
Really?
yeah. There's a couple things, like I travel with linen napkins now. The ones I don't think I had it when
Linen
I was a
napkins. Okay.
yeah, it's so silly, right? But they have like little quotes on them, like "What makes you come alive?" and then different questions. So we use them around the table, and every day you get a different question, and it's just like it just
Mm,
we love to talk about our highlights, and we love to talk about those deeper
yeah, I
things.
remember
And so
that.
yeah, and so it's just an extension of that. And I just was like, I'm going to bring those. Why am I keeping those in a box? I'm going to use those. It's a
Mm,
sense of home, and it's what I would want to have in my home. So why am I not bringing it with me? So there's a couple little things like that that are getting into the bags now since we went back to Canada. But
you can share with Greg that we still travel with a knife that he gave us before we left, the
oh,
Japanese knife, or I'm
amazing!
not sure if the Japanese knife, but yeah, that knife's been because we never traveled with a knife before, and I love to cook, and knives is probably
Yeah.
the people, nobody invests in good knives in Airbnb, so yeah, that's definitely something that is part of our travel companion now. We always
Mm.
have that knife, yeah. So just let him know that it's very useful.
Aw, I will tell him that. I will tell him
Yeah.
that. So I know we've talked about so many things, and maybe we covered part of it, but the question we always ask, and like there's so many
Okay.
parts of our life when everything changes, like it's hard to pick one. But
Yeah, it is.
right? And like
Yeah,
especially
yeah, I think so. At least in my case, yeah, wow.
yeah. I feel like the more we do life, the more we're like, oh man, that changed everything, and then that changed everything.
Hmm.
But is there something that comes to mind in this moment? You're like, now that this thing comes to my mind when I think about the time in my life when everything changed.
It's a good question. It's a good question. I believe one of the biggest change was like the most recent one that was in 2021. Yeah, when because I used to travel by myself, and then Dominique and I would do long distance, and we would connect, reconnect, connect, reconnect, go on, But this time we decided to leave together, and that was for me when we just sold everything in 2021 and decided to start in Los Angeles, but we knew it was going to be just the first destination in our journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that was by far, and that next year, I turned 30, and something else completely shifted. Just realizing that whole, I don't know, I feel like I'm probably an identity shift. I don't say crisis, but like shift. Just something happened, and the theme for the year was less is more, and it was just time to just shed a lot of layers a lot of old belief, old habits, and identity that was just feeding that the ego, and also not necessarily feeding the best version of myself. So that was for me, that was the biggest seed that was planted in the growth. If you ask me, 3 years ago, it's almost 3 years ago, when we started this whole journey, if, it's incredible.
Hmm.
It's incredible that so grateful that we've done that decision. There's one of the whole goal for us to do this was for Dominique and I to combine our forces. We didn't know how and what that even meant, but we just knew it was enough for us to move together, but like side by side, but throughout our own lives, we really wanted to create something together.
Hmm.
We thought it was probably going to be a business, this and that. Turns out, I believe we did it all. It was a business and a family, and it all happened in Nicaragua, by the way, in 2022, the next year after when we left Los Angeles. So, and that year and that's where we met. It was just a significant change of year. And I believe you probably, if you witnessed the
Hmm.
shift from when we met and when he left, just in those few months. Um, yeah, the international souls were born. Our business, Livia Rose the seed was planted, and Dominique was pregnant. So that was definitely the biggest, yeah, the biggest change and most impactful yet in her life recently,
Hmm.
and made me who I am today, and Dominique as well. So yeah, that was
Wow.
very, very, yeah, very special time. September 2nd.
September 2nd is that when
2000.
you guys
Yeah,
left?
yeah, it was the day, like, yeah, it was just the day. And again, when we arrived in LA, that first 1 or 2 weeks, I was in my friend's place, GF, very grateful for him to let us be at his place. But I just felt like everything was aligning, even though nothing was planned, or everything was just flowing. And I just knew, yeah, this is the right place to be for now. But yet, after a few months, 6, 7 months, um, well, my pattern of reassessment happened, and realized I was not it. And then that's when we moved to Nicaragua. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, so to answer the question, that was definitely to take, this quote already, but, leave the good for the great, take a leap of faith. And it was time to do it. We did it, and we did it, and did it again. And yeah, and to this day, like, I'm so happy we took that decision.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm so interested, and I think a lot of people probably listening will feel the same way. What was the thing? Because a lot of times we feel like something needs to change, or and like we
Mm,
talked about earlier, we can get stuck. And so, what was the like? That's a big deal to sell everything and to do that. What was to combine your forces? Like, were you
yeah.
guys in totally in unison with this, or did you feel something and then she was feeling something, or how did you guys come to that decision together and then take that jump? Because that is a giant jump.
Good question. You know, I believe I was the one who initiated the thoughts with Dominique, and for whoever's listening, Dominique has created a great business here, and has a team, and she felt like, okay, maybe how will I manage my business while leaving, and so she went through a whole process of digesting the idea of living together. She was very exciting about it, but yet, just maybe not overthinking, but thinking of all the scenarios and all this stuff. Personally, it's a lot about the intuition. Uh, there's these little things in life where, the lease was ending. It was time. What do we do? Do we renew? Do we leave? And I think those chapters,
Mm.
those little signs can be blessings in disguise. You don't know, but the lease ending is actually a great opportunity for you to move or go somewhere else, or a job ending is a great opportunity to maybe, like, a relationship ending, whatever it is. When there's something that's closing, don't it's actually a really good thing. So for us, the chapter was closing, and we had to take this decision. And we kept on feeding, so we did our daily walk and talk. We normally find a special place where we are. That time and space was at the local botanic garden in Montreal, beautiful place where we saw all the different, from the winter to the spring to the summer, like all the blossom. And we were having all these great conversations. And we are like, you know what, let's just go. And at first, it was overwhelming because so in our condo back in Montreal, we used to have this huge map of the world. And it went from staying in Montreal to, okay, let's go somewhere. But then we didn't know where. So we had this huge map and we looked at it like, where do we even start? So we just, we started to, again, the walk and talk, starting to talk different options. And LA was the first place that was calling us. And I'm very happy and grateful that we've been there. But I think personally, it started with intuition. It's a muscle memory, I think, intuition that you have to practice. And it's something that I've really started to be aligned with starting the age of 18, 19. That's when I started to really connect with that. And Dominique trusts my intuition a lot as well. She trusts hers, but she also trusts mine when it comes to doing team decisions. So she trusted that, okay, like if that's the place you feel like we need to go, let's make it happen. So she did, she shifted her business model completely. And then I also started to create the action steps to do the whole process of moving and all that. And off we went. So.
Wow. So you're, that's amazing. So you're in LA for 7 months and then you completely change your lifestyle and end up in Nicaragua. How did that happen and how did you guys choose that?
LA is still today, was such a sweet spot in our life where it was just Dominique and I. I was doing some modeling over there. I had a beautiful gym in my backyard, living in Venice, which was always been a dream of living right next to the beach, Venice Beach. And having good friends, a yoga studio, community. I mean, it was really a sweet spot, beautiful weather. And one time, like this one day, we were going to Santa Barbara, and we were driving. We purchased a brand new Tesla, like just driving a nice car, and we were going to Santa Barbara. And I remember, and that was just right after I hit 30 in February. And I look at Dominique and I ask her, we're living our dream, but is this it? Is this it? And she looked at me like, what do you mean? Like, well, is this it? Like, you know what? It's funny that you say that because for the past few days, I was wondering the same question. So the whole drive going there, it's about 2 hours. We started to do, and that was about 6 months in, started to reassess. We started to like, okay, well, what else is out there? If it's not LA, what else is out there? Or did we combine our force? Not that much, this and that. A lot of good stuff happened, but so we reassessed, and for some reason Nicaragua was calling. I don't know what or where or how honestly, I don't know how it really happened in Nicaragua, but it was just, how about Nicaragua? How about we go isolate ourselves in a second or third world country where we don't know anyone, where less is more, and there's no modeling, there's no this and that, there's no Tesla. We just go and strip down a bunch of stuff. How about we go and give ourselves a year if we need to reassess and to combine our forces? At first it was really scary, as any big leap of faith. But then it started to make sense, and we really started to have omens, it's like these signs of life. I remember when Dominique went the next day to a yoga studio where we were practicing our daily practice. She met this girl, which, Corinne, and she just, Dominique with her beautiful heart, she's like, wow, at the end of the class, who are you? What's this sticker on your bottle? You're so beautiful. And they started to talk, and next thing you know, Corinne was the owner, still is the owner of the restaurant, Ding Repair in San Juan del Sur. It's like, yeah, I do back and forth LA, Nicaragua. I'm like, what, really? And so we invited them over for dinner the next few days, and we started to talk about it, and everything just started to plan along. And next thing you know, a month later, we got out of release, sold the car, sold the stuff, told my agency I'm gonna take a break of modeling, and I we left for Nicaragua. Crossing the borders with our luggage by feet and arriving in this house, and just like, okay, here we are. Let's figure it out. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning of that chapter. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys had this idea, this feeling that there was a
Really?
shift, but
Yeah.
like, yeah. And then the Nicaragua comes up, and then she meets Corinne, who is like, lives in Nicaragua part of the time. And then it just
Yes.
spiraled into like, let's go to this other world, really.
It
Nicaragua
was.
is like another world.
It is another world, and and not a lot of people know about it. There's kind of unfortunately a bad reputation, but sometimes you just need like a little sign or push ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that her and Tim, her boyfriend at the time, was truly like yeah, here we go. You want some information, this and that. Here's a couple that will guide you through the process and answer your questions. And again, that chapter, I truly wish that everyone can live not what we live, but that can give themselves permission to step back from their daily grind in life and
Mm-hmm.
to go somewhere where they have no distraction and they don't have any obligation. We did set ourselves up for that. I mean, especially financially, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, just live with less and to
Mm-hmm.
live for, a few months or a year without stressing too much financially, and just to arrive. It took us a lot of time just to arrive, just to like
Mm-hmm.
arrive, a good 3 months for nervous system to calm down, to get use of this slower pace, to the dirt roads, to all of it, just the whole push and pulls of Nicaragua. Um, but yeah, it was just such a beautiful, raw chapter.
Yeah.
Just Ometepe, all those places, Laguna del Pollo, and the surf, and you guys obviously is, yeah, I'm not saying everyone should go to Nicaragua. I'm just saying, like, if they have the opportunity to take a little bit of time off their regular day and to reassess, do it. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing, and it changes you, right? It changes you being in those spaces. And just, I was talking to someone today, and they are from here, from Peru, and they're like, one of the greatest things about going other places is you learn about language and culture and food, and you taste things you never thought you would have tasted, and you experience things you never thought you
Mm,
would experience, and those all impact you and change you, and your perspective on life and what's possible. I think a lot of
yes.
times it can feel impossible. What you're talking about can feel very impossible
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
many people. It's like, how, until you do it, and you're like, oh, like, there is this beautiful thing about trusting that there's that if your body and your mind and your soul is saying there's something else going on here, and to trust that and not be too afraid
Truly.
of it. And it is
Mm,
like, I remember when we first arrived to Nicaragua, there was bugs like I never experienced before in my life, and
yeah.
just that, like, discomfort, and eventually becoming comfortable with what was very uncomfortable at the beginning,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
realizing that it's okay. And um, it doesn't have to be polished or like the way that I know it to be, in the life that I've had, growing up in Canada, that there's beauty, and like you get so comfortable with like hearing the monkeys howl at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
and the seeing a snake at the pool, and these things that would normally be very discomforting. But what I love what you guys did is, I mean, you came there. I don't fully know, and you can speak to this, what your intentions were, but
Yeah.
you came there, and like you said, it was like 3 months of like really adjusting to the lifestyle, the environment, the heat. There's so many things to adjust to when you're going to something so different from where you've come from.
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
but then you guys started to like dream into the space of like, how do we help people? And I mean, the
Yeah.
first place that you were at, I don't know, like, now seeing what you guys have all done, I mean, that was quite an experience, and what you guys gave there, and how you even connected with the people that were working there, and how you helped during the
Yeah.
flood, and all of these
Yeah.
things that happened in Nicaragua. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to know, like, when did you guys, because I know you're saying join your forces. And so I don't really fully,
Yeah.
for our listeners, what that fully means is like join our
Yeah.
forces is like the things that make us like, that are passions within us that we want to do together. Because you really did, really, it was like you guys, from when I met you, it was like, you this beautiful plant, and you've got this beautiful green
Hmm.
leaf that looks super healthy. And then all of a sudden it was like it grew another leaf and then like another one. And then I'm like, oh, there's like a full on flower. And then this turns into a tree, and you're just like,
Mm.
wow. So I'm interested to hear what started that for you guys to like, and your goal to help people. Maybe that was always part of the thread, but I mean, then you really stepped out into some really uncomfortable, from my viewpoint, that could have been really uncomfortable in where you were living and what you were
Yeah, of
doing
course.
and how you were giving. How did that transpire for you guys?
Hmm. Hmm. That's it's nice. I'm, embodying that moment again. And it took a few weeks, maybe months for Dominique and I to give herself again the permission to start brainstorming and seeing what's next. We really want to just arrive. Once we felt like we did arrive, we, again, with our daily walk and talk, we started to brainstorm like, okay, what is it that is, first of all, when we did our criteria was, what's the most important thing for us at this specific moment that we want to be building? And there's a few things that came up, not necessarily in a specific order, but the the core of it was, okay, we want to be in service and help other become the best version of themselves. How, we don't know, but that is something we both are aligned with. Great. Second was the lifestyle. How can we live a healthy, happy, thriving lifestyle that we are aligned with, that we are moving and in nature? And you know, a life, for me, lifestyle is very, very important. So how can we live it while we're doing, being in service and also getting paid, obviously, to create this business? And we then assess our skill sets. So Dominic
Mm.
has amazing skill sets that I absolutely don't have, and then vice versa. So we really started to see, okay, here are my skills, here are your skills. How can we create something with that? And as we started to just, again, brainstorm and put all those ideas to life, we came up with a way to, I guess, attach a health and wellness program with hotels. That was like, okay, how can we make this merge in together? And we realized the pillar were, everything that has to do with social media. So media capturing beautiful moments, like content creation, something that I have a, pretty good background in Dominique as well. The second was, the coaching of health and wellness, so fitness and yoga specifically. The third one, and the third one was DJing. So sorry, I said four to three. The third one was, DJing, so music. So how can we add all of this to a hotel
Mm.
and all, like, so, and in Nicaragua, there's not many hotels. And it turns out we were living across from this place called The Space, which, uh, and I don't know how I think I reached out on social media or something like that to connect with them. And we went in person, uh, and we started having a conversation with the owners, and it was just aligned, like, wow, we need exactly all of this. Great. We can offer it. Let's do it. And we started our first 6-month partnership over there, and we learned a lot as we were doing it. And every day something new came up, and the whole business started to make more and more sense. Like you mentioned earlier, like we're definitely not masters of this new concept, but we're willing to put a lot of heart and energy in and to make it happen and to make it successful and to add value.
Mm.
Uh, and a lot of things, we scratch a lot of things and we filter to what was really working and what was important for us and how we wanted to make it sustainable for, all the parties. And that's how the business, the International Souls came along, and the whole birth of it. And it was yeah, it was a beautiful chapter and a lot of growth. And there was, there's so much challenges in Nicaragua to operate anything, I believe. Like you said, the flood, the hurricanes, sometimes the food doesn't come, the employees don't show up. Like there's always things happening. Sorry. But yeah, so that was the whole start of this venture, which we're still very implicated and committed today with this business. Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. I mean, and the space is like, it's got a lot of like backpackers and young people coming
Yep.
through. So
Yep.
you're really able to tap in with people that were there more so probably short term, but
Yes.
but have an impact on them. And I remember you doing like the weight.
Yeah.
I believe the gym was like, was it not
Jungle gym? It was a jungle
yeah,
gym.
jungle gym.
Yeah, it was raw, like barefoot, all the wooden stuff, and outdoor yoga shala, mosquito fully welcomed. And yeah, you did the first session with Dominique, and Dominique was just starting to teach yoga. Like it was really close to when she started to give her first classes. And I'm so proud of her. Like today, she's my favorite yoga teacher by far. She's so good and passionate, and just, her light and her energy in her yoga class. And that also opened so many doors when she started to embody her teaching, her yoga, her feminine energy as well. I also believe all of those practice that she did in terms of yoga also made her body ready to receive a child. Like I really believe it balanced everything out. So, and again, starting a business with your partner is a challenge, and I think it's super important to start the foundation with establishing the roles. What are my roles and what are her roles? And that's important. And ideally to de-associate the business also from the couple and the friends, like the friendship. There's all these different roles in a partnership with your loved one. So it took a bit of time, and we're still always adjusting. But now, I know after over 2 years, we definitely feel like we know, okay, my roles are Dominique are this, and this, and we respect them. And I know she will do it really well, and I will do it really well without overlooking what she does and what I do. And I'm happy that we can do that. Yeah, it's important, and to let them be, and that's you. Good. She's, fully trust that she's gonna crush it, and vice versa. So.
Wow. And it's taken you guys to so many other places beyond. The space was like, it was pretty raw. Like, it was probably a really raw start, which it really mirrors Nicaragua. Nicaragua is raw in all of its forms. And there are some like really nice places that you guys got to experience as well outside of that. But what a start being like, it's almost like, you're starting at like, I don't want to say zero, but you're starting on the ground level.
It was, No, it was, of course. And it totally was, Janelle, and I'm happy that's where it started with. It's a specific crowd, like you said. It's a backpacker crowd, younger. Not everyone is into wellness, and but it also made us realize what we also, with what we wanted and what type of partnership we wanted to create and with which environment, and that led us. It was time to, we decided not to renew the contract, which is fine. And I love this story, because as soon as we decided to kind of, say, hey, we're not going to move on with the continuity of this partnership. About 2 hours later, we received an email from the Colibri Group. It's the hotel's called Yamaya on the Corn Island, and they tell us, Eryck, we receive your information, and we would love to have a conversation with you. We believe that International Souls could definitely come and create a whole wellness program here, and we have a space for you, and we would also love some content creation and some music, so you guys fit perfectly. Um, and ideally, you guys would arrive in like 2-3 weeks. Is that okay? Like, can we have a conversation? And during those 2 hours of, okay, well, now what?
Yeah.
I was just like, it's fine. Let's just be. And then 2 hours later, this email come, and Dominique and I just like, wow, what a that for me, that big message was you have to make space in your life for what you really want. So as soon as we did make space, this opportunity came at Colibri, and we went. So a month later, we decided to go to Yamaya, to the small island. There's 800 people who live there. There's no cars, no motorcycles, no hospital, no school. It's super raw. And that's when we did our second partnership with a whole different. It's a bit more luxurious. The crowd is different. The resources are different. That was also the day where we learned at the end, the first day we arrived, right before the island, that's when we knew that Dominique was pregnant. So we're starting a second partnership. Dominique was now pregnant, and we're going to be spending the next 3 months on this small island, remote, navigating through all of it. And I'm so proud of her. She did it. She no doctors, and just trusting that the baby was okay inside of her, while getting to know a whole new team and way of working with different people, and understanding how we can fit our roles, inside of the organization. And that was a beautiful, beautiful chapter. And from there, we received an opportunity. So the Colibri Group also have 4 hotels in Tulum. So that's when we also received an opportunity to go and create a similar concept with the hotels that were in Tulum, Tulum is, it's pretty much a main destination in the world. A lot of parties, but also a lot of wellness that goes there. And that was a great platform for us to create another wellness program, content creation and music. We stayed there for a year, and we learned a lot, and we built, and we created great relationship with people over there as well. Um, and and yeah, we did like a smaller partnership as well with a different hotel called Santana for a week. That was great in Nicaragua. But you see, like, all of these different chapters and season just led to another into another, and that's I think that's just the reward of being in action and not being frozen. Just be in action every single day, and just trust that you have something unique and that you can add value to whatever you're creating to someone else. And that it will eventually just work, and that's how it was. And we're never in this whole process we were chasing financial goals. It was always honestly about the lifestyle, the certain being in service. And as we went, the contract were getting better and better as well financially, but it was never the priority at first. It was always a byproduct of it all, really. I mean, we need money to be sustainable, obviously. But yeah,
But the
it's pretty
force
cool to go
pushing
back
you
to
is
it.
like the force
Yeah.
pushing you is the underlining like love for helping people and like genuinely wanting to help people improve their lives. That's like
Yeah.
that was the thing that was the drive inside of you guys, which it ended up being something so beautiful. Like you said, like in the beginning, you started on ground level, and then you're in Tulum, which Tulum is a beautiful destinational space where a lot of people go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and from around the world, so you get to tap into people in from all over the place and leave your fingerprint on their heart,
Yeah.
and inspire them in their own journeys. And just I think when you zoom out, and like maybe you feel that now just looking at it, just zooming out and going like, wow, like with an idea, we're in the small town in Montreal, we're like, I
Hmm.
feel like we need to make a change. I don't know, we need to sell our place. Or like, leave a lease or whatever and sell our things, to like
Hmm.
going to LA, to this being in Nicaragua, like some of the most craziest and wildest experiences you could ever experience in the world happen in Nicaragua, you know,
Hmm.
to being on an island. And like you say, like early months of pregnancy, a lot of questions can come in that season, but just trusting, and then going to Tulum. And all of it just came out of this passion that was in both of you. And like you said, to kind of align your forces and align what you do together. And there are a lot of growing pains in these seasons when everything changes.
Of
And
course.
I heard somebody say once, you know, you can see two people on a similar journey, and when one person takes a right hand turn, you're like, it's a completely different than where this person is going. Not that this is wrong, but they took the turn. And it's like when you've reached your maximum level of, how they put it was, you reach your maximum level of pain in your mind, body, and soul, you make that turn. Or maybe when you reach that maximum level of like discomfort, you know that it's time to make that change. You're like, oh no, we're doing the leap, because this, where we're going, doesn't feel like we're in the right lane. And even though this looks
Mm,
really scary and really fearful, and that can really hold us back sometimes, you guys just move beyond that into this, okay, we're going to trust our intuition. We're going to trust that there's something over there. And I love what you said in the beginning, when a door closes, don't be so discouraged about that. There's another one opening. And oftentimes, if that
mm-hmm,
door doesn't close, we can be blinded by that and not see this other one. So sometimes
mm,
we have to make that decision to close it. And sometimes it closes for us. Either way, to know that there's something beautiful that's kind of in the mix over here that maybe you
mm,
couldn't see, you know. So I love
mm.
it.
Yeah, yeah. You said it so well, and to just to add on top of that, to leave a situation or a partnership or something, you don't have to wait for it to be bad. You don't have to wait for it to be exhausted or, just at the end of it. And it doesn't have to be like that. When the quote, leave the good for the great, it's exactly that. It doesn't mean that it's bad that you need to leave it. It's just that there's something better out there that is meant for you at this time in life, but also this space that I'm creating by leaving is going to be fulfilled by someone who actually will be way more aligned where they are in their life now, and they're going to be thriving um,
Mm-hmm.
due to that space that's been creating. So these situations, I mean, just leaving Tulum, when we told the group, hey, thank you for everything, but we will not renew a contract, that was
Mm-hmm.
probably the hardest leave the good for the great for us, because we're finally doing it. Like, the contract was beautiful. The team, we were living right next to the beach. It was, just living a dream, honestly, with our baby girl and the whole Colibri group. They're so nice people. They just let us be who we are, and they trust that we were good at what we did, and we just create and flow. So, and that was a great environment to be in. So, but to leave that situation was hard because it was so good. But yet, and
Mm-hmm.
nothing was planned. Like, we're coming back. We left to come back in a neutral ground in a parent's home. It's um uh, so. If my point is, just you don't have to wait until you're exhausted or it's bad. Sometimes just trust that there's something much better out there, and it's also creating space for someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is so true. And it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of times in life, the good is good. Like
Yeah.
Greg and I had this conversation years ago, the good and the great. We talked about this. Is like,
Yes.
we have these good things going on in our lives. And a lot of times the good is very commendable. People will applaud you and be like, how are you doing these things? And you're like, and so it fuels that of like, I'm in the right spot sometimes, because people recognize it. But the thing is that if the good is not the great, and a lot of
Hmm.
times the good can be the distraction from the great. And
Yes. So true.
it's come apparent to us many times in our life, and things that we've made some big changes and big shifts in our lives, that aren't always very easy. Like you said, it can be really hard, that having those conversations, be like, I know that the door still is open to me here, but I know that I need to make this exit, because
Hmm.
there's something great that is calling me, that I can't even put my
Hmm.
finger on, and I don't even know what it is. Like I
Mm.
remember Greg and I sitting in Mexico and realizing had planned this trip a year in advance, and it was, we were in very stable jobs at the time, and things were changing. And I remember us being there, and it was like the floor fell out underneath us, and we're like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like,
Mm.
we have 4 kids and a mortgage and things to take care of, and everything has just shifted. And coming back, and the door, it didn't just close, it entirely changed, an entirely different color, and the whole makeup of the door was different, and so it wasn't a path we could adventure anymore. And then realizing that there's something else over here. And sometimes in those moments when the door does close, or when you choose to change things, it's almost sometimes in those, the necessity of the next thing, it can lead you to rally inside of you, to realize there's something that's there, that hasn't been tapped into, that we haven't been using, that now is there's space for it. Because you don't have the comfort of the one thing over here. And so you have to lean into the thing that is maybe been sitting dormant for a long time, and then you revive it, and you realize, oh, like, this is something I could have never imagined. And it ignites something in you that is sleeping for a long time.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
Oh man, I'm just enamored with the journeys of life and the changes
Yeah,
that can happen, and how resilient we can all be in the midst of all of those things. Before we cap off here, I wanted to ask you, if you were speaking to like younger Eryck, or a couple who's in your situation, or someone who's feeling some of these things, is there one thing that you would want your younger self to know about the journeys you've gone through in the past 2 years?
Hmm.
Sorry, I know
I
that's
feel like there's no, there's two things that I just came up, and so let's go with those. The first one is to trust, really, to like just keep on trusting the intuition and the unknown. Um, and honestly, the second one is to educate, like just be curious and to educate myself. Like I truly believe knowledge and power is power. Knowledge is power. I really believe that knowledge can come in many ways. I'm not just saying like read a book for knowledge. There's many ways to get the knowledge, but also the knowledge of understanding who you are first. Just to really get to know that person, because you're living with it your whole life. So to trust, and to just educate yourself and be curious. That would be something that I would have. I'm not a big like would have loved to, but in the context of the question, that would be the two answers. Yeah.
Stay curious. That's a good one.
Yeah. Stay curious, for sure.
Yeah. And there's
And
so many
trust
ways to absorb the knowledge. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a book. There's so many ways to accumulate knowledge. Yeah.
Education really. It's um, I, I think it's can be easy to be a bit more lazy and not to want to be, go a little bit beyond when it comes to educating yourself. But there's just so much access now. Even in this podcast, like for me, I love listening to podcasts. You can really hear incredible stories from people now that we have access to all these brains and experiences. So that you can take whatever you feel like taking from that conversation and vice versa. Yeah. But just be open and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, and also acknowledge when you fail and try to assess from those failures. I love assessing the failure and assessing where I did wrong, and or even a conversation with Dominique where I felt like I shouldn't have told her that, or that was not appropriate. I'll always, as much as I can, think about that and acknowledge it and tell her, hey, maybe I should have said that, or that's, so, yeah, voila.
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 I love it. That's amazing. Okay. Before we wrap up, tell me one thing in your life that's bringing you joy in this season where you are.
My little girl. Sometimes I put my head in these situations where I think it's such a big deal, but then immediately or a few seconds after, I'm like, yeah, it's not really a big deal, and I just
Mm,
look at her and it's not that important, it's not
mm.
that important. So yeah, being a father and also witnessing Dominique being such a great mom is, yeah. So this is bringing, like, my new family setting is bringing me a lot of joy. Yeah.
A lot of joy. Ah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Kid, kids have a way of bringing balance. I feel like they're some of the best teachers in the world.
Oh,
Um,
so much teaching.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're looking, we can take a lot from them. So I can echo that for sure. Um, the beautiful joys of having a family. That is the best. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being here today and for sharing your journey, which is there's so many things nuggets I feel like you left out there, just inspirational and just like the seasons and just recapping on some of the things that you said. I feel like it's you remind us all that to lean into the things that bring joy and bring life into us, and to not get stuck in the rut of just
mm,
doing, but to dream beyond that. And it's really
yes.
beautiful. It's really beautiful. You guys are really living what you preach, and I feel
Yeah.
like uh, it's not we our actions speak so much louder than our words, and what you guys are doing is beautiful
Thank
and
you.
how you're living it out. So thank you so much for being here, and give your
Thank you,
wife and
Janelle.
baby a big hug for me and for all of us here.
Oh,
um
well, thank you so much for
yeah.
saying that. It's really well received, and I really appreciate it. And I think it was so nice to also catch up with you and have a great conversation. And you've always been so good at holding space and listening. And yeah, so I was really excited to have a conversation. I remember all the deep convo we had around a tea or around a drink back in Nicaragua. So yeah, it was really a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
You as
And
well.
yeah, we'll catch up more in the future. But thank you so much, Eryck. Sending so much love and hugs to you guys. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcast goodness. This way you'll never miss out on any future episodes, plus it really helps us. And if you want to share your favorite episode with a friend, that would be absolutely incredible. This goes a long way. If you'd like to join Naked by sharing part of your story, just leave us a message on Instagram or email us at nakedwithjanelle@gmail.com. Also, a big thanks to my son, Mikkel, who is the best cheerleader and maybe one of the biggest believers in Naked, and also produces and edits all our podcasts. I am beyond grateful for him and very aware that I couldn't do this on my own. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here.